We're going to try something different from this week going on, and that is you will get to enjoy this lovely video. At least I'm hoping it's lovely. I hope I don't make a complete hames of it. But you get to enjoy this video, but also from this week, we will be publishing a written edition of the ups and downs over on whatculture.com. This is going to be written by our writer, Jack Kiley. Sometimes there will be some fun disagreements. You hear that, Jack? I'm not always going to agree with you. So, Whistlespeak is the 6th episode of the 5th season of Star Trek Discovery, and I found this to be a very original series inspired episode. You could say, going in, that there is a slightly bottle episode feel to it. Now, that's not necessarily a criticism. I mean, how many bottle episodes have we loved in the past? Actually, I think there's a lot of good in that fact. We do, of course, get an advancement of the overall arc. If you're watching this video, I have to assume you've seen the episode, so we know that we get slightly further along with the clues toward the progenitor's tech. Fantastic. But the bulk of the action of this episode is quite small in a way. I was torn initially. It's like, is this a good thing? It's the 6th episode out of 10 of the last season of Discovery. Do we have time for this? And as I was watching, I was sort of flipping and flopping on it. I think it's going to age quite well. Now, that's my top line thoughts. I suppose I better go straight in with an up. We get another great scene of the crew working together to work out this clue. Now, we know that they discovered on the ISS Enterprise this vial of water, which we are told again and again is distilled water. It's water, it's distilled water. Okay, cool. It's not magic water, it's distilled water. I need to make a tiny correction to myself as well, because last week I said that Burnham discovered 5 organic components on the ISS Enterprise. Wasn't at all. It was the quantum signature was from their universe. So, boo, Sean of the past, get your facts right. Sean of the future, really hope he gets his facts right for this episode. Again and again, we are told it's just water, pay no attention to the scratchings on the side of the dish. In this conversation as well, Burnham speaks to Kovich, taken up. I mean, of course, it's David Cronenberg, of course he's getting it up. We go back to, the Celestial Temple, the construct from the Matrix. This infinity room that was introduced in the first episode of the season. I have questions about this room, and more questions from this episode. Here, Burnham speaks to Kovich, and Kovich, who has access to 21st century ledger, okay, why not, hands her a piece of paper, which she brings back with her to Discovery, which to me says, right, she was physically in this room and they're not close to home or anything. Basically, is this a variation on, is this like a pocket dimension that they exist in? Is this outside of space and time? If it's outside of space and time, that could go a ways to explaining why there's a 21st century A4 ledger looking like it's just been bought in, Eason's. If it's outside of space and time, has it always existed? And if that's the case, perhaps we will get a story of how Kovich discovered it, not really sure. Or how does this reconcile with all of the laws about time travel from the temporal wars? These are big questions for the final season, which leaves me a bit concerned that we're not going to get answers to them, which I really don't think that we are. Then that leads me down to, is this setting something up for Starfleet Academy? And if that is the case, that's a down, because you're introducing something to be picked up by another writer in another show. Kind of sounds like you're doing, not my problem, you deal with it. Is that harsh? Perhaps. But it's how I feel about it. From this magical questioning room, Burnham gets this list of names, and one of the names made me smile rather a lot. But we do get the name of the Denobulan scientists, who leads them to the planet Halemino. This is their next journey along the way after a lot of process elimination to figure out where this water is from. Cool with that, all cool. Also, Denobulum, lovely little Easter egg. We learn quite quickly that it's a pre-warp civilization, so there are questions of the Prime Directive in this episode, which I really do like, but I'll come back to. Because there's more as the episode goes along. We get, I thought it was quite a fun scene on the bridge where Burnham tells Raynor that she will be going down to the planet with Tilly, and Raynor, having already gone through this conversation last week about Captain's place on the bridge of their ship and everything, he's just like, yeah, cool. I mean, yeah, fine, go on ahead. I really like that because he knew he wasn't going to get anywhere with it. So that I liked. We have Adira on the bridge, and Adira is still beating themselves up over being, if you like, the host of this time bug. On the one hand, I guess I can understand a little bit of, it was me, I was the one that they put it on. But on the other hand, I'm as the episode goes along, I'm afraid my sympathy dipped a little bit for Adira. I will come back to that one. Down on the planet, we find, again, pre-warp civilization. Everyone is talking about gods, they're all on a pilgrimage, and this is what I mean when it feels very original series. Burnham and Tilly have to blend in with the local populace. They get talking to a woman, Inora, and via her they learn that there is vicious dust storms that is directly affecting the people that are left on the planet. There is a degree of responsibility that is to be left on the Federation's doorstep here for that. They get as far as a village, which is just in time to effectively save the life of this woman who is effectively choking on the dust that she was exposed to. This then leads to a scene of, for want of a better description, homeopathic medicine. Now that does seem to have a very physical effect on this woman. It's like the vibrations in the air do manage to clear her throat, and they quite overwhelm Burnham, and they say, look, sorry, we should have warned you. This is, if it's your first time experiencing this can be a lot. I really enjoyed all of this scene because a part of me was just like, so you're going to save her with music? And no, it actually has an effect. It's very, I'm gonna say it again, it's very original series. It's very next generation. This idea that, yes, these people are far less technologically advanced than, say, our contemporaries of the 32nd century are, but it doesn't mean they're inept by any means. Up. Speaking actually quickly of technological advancements, Tilly and Burnham are equipped with retinal tricorders. Up. And I tell you why. We're in the 32nd century, and there are weeks at a time when we're sitting there going, where are the advancements? What have you been doing in the last millennium? And allowing for the burn as well. We saw, for example, season 3, programmable matter, which is effectively magic, but not an awful lot else, And then this week he come along with retinal tricorders, and I thought, oh, good, I'm enjoying seeing tech that looks futuristic, that looks advanced from what they would have been used to. So that, for me, that was a thumbs up for this week. Aboard Discovery, we get what is a very interesting storyline, and that concerns Dr. Culber. Ever since his experience with Janelle on Trill, Culber has been experiencing what is best described as a crisis of faith, because he cannot really think of a physical reason as to why he feels the way that he does. In this episode, we see him discuss that with Paul, but before that, there is this therapeutic procedure he goes through in which he interacts with a holo of his abuela, and she has been programmed with everything that is recorded of his real abuela so that she can respond in ways that would be real to life. And he finds this very comforting. I can understand why that would be both beautiful for some people and completely horrific for others, if I'm being very honest. Is this a version of life after death? Again, this perhaps ties into this crisis of faith here. His abuela was, of course, a doctor. And so she says, well, have you checked the body? Before you can work on the soul, is your body okay? And I actually quite like that even as a doctor, he hadn't particularly thought of that. You might go, well, physically I feel fine. It's like, yes, but are you? You go and scan yourself. At least rule that out. And so he goes to Paul And he says, look, I might need a bit of a hand with this. Would you help me with running a full neurological scan on myself? Paul is a bit like, I mean, yeah, sure. Are you okay? But yes, this supportive partner thing, it's an up from me, Culber and Stamets. We had a chat as well that once they do the neurological scan and they find that no, physically there is nothing wrong with Hugh, there is a moment where Stamets effectively says, are you having a spiritual awakening? Well, there's nothing wrong with you, so why don't you just enjoy this? And it did look for a moment as if, is this season 5's version of Culber and Stamets don't understand each other? And the reason I say that is because there's a trope. I don't think it's going in that direction though, at least that's not the impression I got from this episode. I think perhaps we're a bit burned when it comes to that. I think that this is something that Culber is probably going to have to do without Paul, but I don't think it's going to drive a wedge between them either. There is one thing that I do have to give it down to, and it is the fact that there are after effects of the Jintara. The reason being, we've seen the Jintara before. Everyone else seemed to be fine. And that seems very mean against Culber, but it's the fact that so much emphasis is being placed on this storyline in this season. Just the fact that it's the Jintara. I feel there's maybe other ways of going around this. I mean, yes, he had another consciousness inside his body. That's going to play with you. There's no question about that. But for that to lead to a spiritual awakening, it's not for me to say, I think, but just the fact that there's so much emphasis being placed on that it felt a bit, okay, not sure I'm on board with. You hosted another consciousness, that was a physical thing, and that is leading to a spiritual awakening. On the one hand, I am delighted for you, and I would be a bit with Paul on this one, is enjoy the process, talk, engage with people. Then on the other hand, it's like, Cisco, Lita, Quark, of all people, they were fine. That being said, up goes to the conversation of faith versus science that's being said by two scientists. So you've got Stamets and Culber, both of whom are, the quintessential men of science in this show. I quite like that. I really do, because if you go back to the early days of Star Trek, particularly the original series, it was a very atheistic view of the future. Now, that said, of course, there's examples of the contrary, but Roddenberry imagined a future where there would be no religion. I think that as time has gone on, I think there's been a revision of how the future might look. I think Deep Space Nine probably went the furthest in revising that look of there being no religion in the future. Obviously, you've got the Bajorans and you've got the Prophets, but you've got the entire Klingon belief system as well. There are gods out there, and I'm not just talking about the one on Shakari. And of course, this episode itself deals with this discussion of, are there gods, are there not? And does knowing more about reality change the fact that there are gods or there might not be? I'm sort of merging a couple of ups here, particularly like the conversation, the fact that it was Paul and Hugh having this conversation with, and jumping to the end of the episode, the conversation that Burnham has with Rava's father, that expanding one's knowledge does not necessarily mean that what one believed before isn't true. There's just maybe a greater context to it. I think that's a very good message that's in this episode. Saying that, human sacrifice, not really on board with that. Not knowing at the time that the running begins. Oh, by the way, sorry, that music cue when the run is about to begin, taken up, Jeff Russo. That was very good. Again, I didn't know that they were going to do a human sacrifice thing at the end of this. So when they take their dehydration tablets and two people basically bow out straight away, Rava's father goes, courageous attempt, I'm afraid you're disqualified. There's no like, you are not worthy, In a way, I'm delighted they bowed out as quickly as they did. And I completely understand once I have greater context of why they're so like, oh, listen, don't worry about it. Listen, don't worry about it. You did good. The fact that you were in the lineup, you're doing good. Yeah, there was no like, nobody was being forced to do anything. Maybe is where I'm going with that. As the race goes on, now They are armed with, Burnham and Tilly are armed with the knowledge that there must be a at least secondary control panel somewhere nearby the weather control tower. So as they're running along, Burnham sees, you can see from some moss that some has been discolored, which she reckons correctly is by radiation. This radiation coming from this control panel. So Burnham, of course, has to leave the race. And Tilly, who I cannot heap enough praise on Mary Wiseman this season. Tilly, just even the jokes, the way she delivers lines, but also Queen of Endurance. First of all, just Tilly in general, taken up. For me, Tilly, the Queen of Endurance, is my Latinum up of the week. I didn't realize how much I missed her in season 4 until she became a regular again in season 5. And I think the way that they've been using her has been so clever, particularly in this episode, because we probably get the most Tilly this week out of the season. We've had a lot of Tilly so far. Tilly continuing on the race, and although inadvertently almost dooming Rava to death, although Tilly didn't know that, this idea of supporting other people along the way, because of course, what does this do? It ties into pretty much know Tilly's going to be in Starfleet Academy. Yeah, right. Anyone doubting that at this point? I do love the groundwork they're laying here with this. And yes, they get to the tower together, and okay, perhaps she maybe wishes that she'd stumbled along the way. Or, you know, maybe just said, do you know what? I'll have an old sit down here. Because of course it's human sacrifice. Because why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? There's just this great moment where in the tritanium surrounded room, she hears Rava speaking with their father and this idea of sacrifice. And just Tilly, sacrifice? The delivery, it's so good. Because of course Tilly is still speaking to Burnham. They are connected via their retinal tricorders and everything. Burnham's like, uh-oh. Oh dear. I think we all realize what's about to happen here. I have to take us back to Discovery for a second, and I have to give what I think might be interpreted as a very harsh down. In a life or death situation, that is not the time to put someone who is seriously struggling with their self-confidence in control of a section of the bridge. To have Adira there in a situation where someone's life is on the line and everything is being placed on their shoulders, I don't think that's fair on Adira, let alone anyone else on the mission. I do absolutely see this is kind of a Raynor doing a tough love sort of approach, but Adira, and no, I'm not sure, and this, there's a time and a place for that. This isn't it. That was a down for me. I do appreciate that, yes, Adira then helps Burnham understand the Denobulan secondary control panel. Sure. I'm not sure if my down is more focused on Adira, probably less on Adira and more on Raynor and the decision to put Adira in that position. I think this might be one where I disagree with Raynor on this one. It was perhaps too much too soon. Maybe where it comes back to being on Adira again, it ties back into Adira, with the greatest of respect, I need you to get over the fact that you were used as a carrier. How many Starfleet officers have been in the wrong place at the wrong time? It's being very telegraphed, and it's old. This is a down with the hopes that I hope this is it now for that storyline. Adira was used as a bus. The chronophage got on Adira, hopped off Adira. Not Adira's fault. And anyone can see that. So can we be done with that, please? Anyway, to put a slightly more positive spin on the end of that, yes, Adira helps Burnham to fix this technology that it is said will require maintenance in the future again. Brilliant, okay, cool. But Rava and Tilly are, of course, stuck in a room that nobody can beam into. There follows a conversation so we chatted about this a good bit before recording, and this is the question of the Prime Directive. Burnham, to save Tilly, elects to break the Prime Directive because she's going to beam into the antechamber. This means revealing herself to Rava's father. It's a short but a good conversation where Raynor has to say to Burnham, Prime Directive. Now, this isn't, Rule 34. This is the Prime Directive. Do you know what you're doing? Burnham says, yes. We're going to have to answer this violation. Burnham says, I know, we're going to do this. We could down it. But then you'd be like, oh, well, John, did you want Tilly to die? And no, I do not. I could up it and be like, great, screw the Prime Directive, pull a Kirk. I think it's more extremely interesting conundrum that captains must face at some point in their career. I mean, I could easily say that, yes, she absolutely did the right thing. You know, I'm not ready to say goodbye to Tilly. This human sacrifice is also completely pointless. The rains will come whether they sacrifice people or not. So, yeah, you would think, of course, I'm going to be completely on Burnham's side. What are you talking about? Then you could be like, well, at what cost do you break the Prime Directive? At what cost do you reveal yourself to these people? I don't have an answer either way. What do you think? I'm asking ye, what do you think? Please let us know, because there's a reason nearly 60 years on, we're still talking about the efficacy of the Prime Directive. The times it's been broken, the times it's been bent, and the times it's been adhered to strictly. We don't get a discussion in this episode that the one like we get in Ad Astra per Aspera, the Strange New Worlds, the courtroom episode, where they talk about how on occasion, as a captain, Robert April, for example, chose to break the Prime Directive, or when Pike did, when working to save that population from the comet. We don't take that time because I wonder if perhaps when writing this they thought, well, we'll have that context already. What do you think? Should Burnham have let them die? You know, what's more important? That's a massive cop-out from me because I don't have an answer and I'm putting it on you. Thanks for watching the video, folks. Saying all of that, Burnham does break the Prime Directive and she does reveal herself to Rava's father. And, you know, he quickly, because you could tell, he doesn't want to kill his child. He doesn't want them to die. And I appreciate that a lot because as a parent, I presume I wouldn't want my kid to die. I also have to say, one thing I really like is that in this pre-warp, slightly primitive civilization that, you know, still believes in, you know, a polytheistic way of life, that they might not be able to figure out the intricacies of a transporter, but they have figured out that gender's a construct. So that's just nice. Maybe we'll get there too at some point. It is this love that Rava's father has for them that allows Tilly and Rava to be saved. Inside, Tilly reveals that these scratchings on the wall, one of them matches the scratchings that was on that vial of distilled water. Definitely distilled water. It's just water, okay? It's just water, okay? We get it. And we get the location of our next clue. Rava and their father are left going, have the gods spurned us? Have the gods saved us? That's where we get our conversation from Burnham going, nothing that you've seen here today proves the gods don't exist. You just now know that there's more in the universe. Really, really like that moment. Really, really do. And that sort of wraps a lot of the episode up. They find they have to travel to one of the other, there are 5 weather towers on the planet, so now they know which one they're going to. That's grand, they've done that. Boom, hooray, next clue, on the way, lovely. We don't really get kind of a resolution as to what the planet's going to do, or Rava and their father, are they going to tell anyone? We do get, actually, for example, in this discussion that maybe people are ready to stop this sacrifice, maybe people are ready to move on from this way of being, and Rava's father says, you know, the last time we tried to stop the sacrifices, there was violence. And then Burnham name drops that poor woman, Inora, who says, yeah, she's ready to finish it. All right, yeah, burn the heretic down, and they fly away. So that'll be an interesting, if any planet needs the Cerritos to follow up, it's this one. So whatever the 32nd century equivalent of the Cerritos is, send them there now. On board the ship, we get another pairing that I really like, Culber and Book. They had a short interaction earlier in the episode where Book is effectively looking for something to do. And, you know, at this point, Culber is like, nah, my plan with Stamets, whatever. At the end of it, they come together and Culber says, actually, I don't think Paul gets it. Book says something that really resonated. He says, there's this funny human quirk that something is less meaningful if it only means something to you. And I thought, ooh. Oh yeah. You can see that affects Hugh as well, as they are eating that gorgeous looking mofongo. I want that. Traditional Puerto Rican dish, yes please. I like their friendship. And also I like the fact that Book did not feel shoehorned into this episode by any means. I think he was used quite well. The overall theme, I think, of this episode is the responsibility of technology. And, you know, this time-old question of just because one can do a thing does not necessarily follow that one must do that thing. Or if you have done a thing, at what point does the responsibility move from you? For example, this very kind professor, doctor, scientist built these weather towers for this planet. Fantastic. 5 of them. Cool. 4 of them broke. And how many people died? Are they his responsibility? Or were they going to die anyway and all he did was buy time? In which case, is he a savior? Who knows? You could be interpreting either way. I like that this doesn't answer that question. And that, I think, is one of the reasons why this show, which could be a bottle episode, as I say, I think this will age well. I think so. I think perhaps in the pacing of the season, I don't know if maybe it was slow, but I think it will age quite well. With that, would you like to join me at Cetacean Observations? Bit of a lighter one this week. We get the USS Lockerer, which we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, is named for the cameraman who has passed away. We get, an A4 page, an A4 ledger is not exactly like a Cetacean Observations, but yeah, I'd like to think it's a nod toward our Easter egg section. Just saying. Did you notice the list of names that Kovich gives Burnham? The Betazoid scientist, their first name is Marina. What could that be a reference to? Of course, there is discussion of lots of denobulin in this episode. We get, is it an Easter egg? The reference, it's a definite reference to Starfleet Academy. Like, it has to be. You know, we could really use you at Starfleet Academy. Don't tempt me. No, do. We want to see you there. Lots more talk of the Jintara in this episode. The fact that it's a very TOS-inspired episode, is that a safe observation? Maybe not, but sure still. It's my video. I'll do what I want. One of the things I thought was definitely a reference to other episodes like this is that we go out into the galaxy, we find these planets where no one really has mastered contractions, like our, technologically advanced ones. It seems like on Earth, you could be like, how are you getting on, Dad? Whereas on Halemino, it's, I wish to inquire as to your well-being, Father. It's such a trope of Star Trek, Stargate, all of those planets that are like a little bit primitive. I loved it. I'm absolutely here for it. I'm not going to lie to you. We see isolinear chips as well in the control panel that Burnham fixes for them. The room is made out of tritanium. The water that is in the vial, they identify that it's made of silver iodide, which is in fact apparently what they're using to try and extract water from the clouds in real life. So, cool. That's everything for our list today, folks. Thank you so much for watching along. As I say, please don't forget to check out the written article by Jack Kiley that will be available on whatculture.com. I do not know at what time this video is dropping. It's perhaps there already. If it is, there'll be a link in the video. If it isn't, it'll be along shortly. Don't forget as well to check out our podcast, which drops every single Tuesday. Also, you're awesome. There we go. That's the end of it. You're awesome. I think you're deadly. Please follow us on all the various socials at TrekCulture. I'm at Sean Ferrick on the various socials. Chris is at EditChrisEdit on the various socials. Jack is at JackKiley74656 on the various socials. Boom, nailed it in one. You're awesome. Live long and prosper till I'm talking to you again. And sure, listen, everything's going to be fine as long as you lead with a bit of love and you lead with a bit of kindness. Thanks very much, folks. See you soon.